Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now for the last week or so I've been a very lucky chap because I've been riding this, the 2020 Triumph Rocket 3R, an incredible looking beast, I think you'll agree. Anyway, in that time I've ridden it as much as possible and I've learned everything I can about the bike, so if you're interested in this machine, stick around and stay tuned. So the Rocket 3 then, what an absolute beast. 2.5 litre engine, 160 horsepower thereabouts, 240 newton meters of torque, an absolute beast. The fastest accelerating Triumph that Triumph have ever made. They recently did a 0 to 60 test and it did it in something like 2.73 seconds. Absolute beast of a bike. Anyway, I've really enjoyed having it for the last week. I've been wanting to ride this for absolutely ages. So what I've done is basically I've ridden it in as many different conditions on as many different roads as I can to try and learn as much as possible as I can about what it might be like to live with the bike. And in this video, I'm going to give you the lessons I've learned, not just the good things about the bike, but the little niggles as well, little things that over a period of time might get on your nerves and you may not pick up if you just had, say, an hour's test ride on the bike. So if you're interested in this machine, stick around and stay tuned. Okay, let's start then with those negative points that I've learned about the bike. And these are in no particular order, and as usual, I've written them down so I don't forget anything. So as I say, not in any particular order, this is just my opinion. Some of these things you may disagree with, but these are the little things about the bike that I just think would niggle me if I own one of these. So first thing is this monster style fuel cap on here. I know why Triumph have done it, obviously to keep with the sort of retro look of the bike. I just don't think it's been implemented very well. It's a bigger version than the one that's on my Speed Twin, for example, but the way it's got this big old rim round here, I just don't think it looks very good. And also, it's already started to sort of tarnish a little bit. I'm not sure how how long lasting this brushed aluminium finish is going to be on there. So I like the idea of a Monza fuel cap, but if you're going to do it, make it seem like a quality one. This just seems a bit flim-flam to me. I'm not keen on the one on my Speed Twin either, but that's actually better than the one on here. So that's the first thing. I just think if you're going to have a premium bike, make everything about it premium. Okay, next up, this fuel tank, it looks absolutely massive and it looks beautiful, but actually it's quite small. It only contains 18 litres, and at around 34 miles per gallon, you're going to get about 130 miles out of a tank. So that may not be an issue on a cruiser type bike. You're not probably going to be doing long distances, but the tank does look massive, but in fact it doesn't hold that much fuel, given it is of course a bit of a fuel guzzler. So that's another point that just struck me as I was riding the bike around. All right, next up, the TFT on this. This is Triumph's next generation TFT. It's got all sorts of connectivity. It's very high tech. It does all kinds of stuff. But unfortunately, I think on this sort of bike, it just shouldn't have a TFT. I think if this had a couple of like big bullet type dials, or even the dials that are on the Thruxton R, this would look so much better. I understand why Triumph do it. Perhaps it's because it gives you all that extra functionality and they're going to charge a premium price, so they feel you should have all the premium functionality on the bike. But for me, that just doesn't fit with the overall look and feel of the bike. And I don't actually like the way that presentation works either, just the way it is. I'd rather it was, if they're going to have a TFT, make it a square one and make it look nice. Or make it a square one with pictures of dials on or something. Or better still, do away with the TFT on this style of bike and go with dials. So that's my next little gripe about the machine. Okay, next up, I've written here, disappointing engine noise, good pops and bangs, but not a triple whistle. Big truck has just pulled up next to me, I'll just wait for that to go. So a big truck has just pulled up next to me. He's making a hell of a noise. I hope you can still hear me. I waited for a good 5 minutes and he's not moving on. He's just sitting there. So hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, where was I? Yes, the noise on here. As I was saying, it makes quite a good amount of pops and bangs on the exhaust, but it's quite quiet, particularly if you've got earplugs in. You can't really hear the engine that much. And it hasn't got that distinctive triple whistle that I thought it might have. I've got a street triple and I've ridden the Tiger 800 quite extensively, and they've got that really nice whistle about them that is sort of characteristic of a triple. I thought this might have it, but be a bit deeper, but it doesn't. So I'm a little bit disappointed on the engine noise, unfortunately, on the bike. All the trucks going now, thank goodness for that. Okay, next up. Right, he's moved on. Okay, next up, keyless ignition. Now there's a problem that to be solved that never was a problem in the first place, isn't it? Again, it's a premium bike, so I guess Triumph have put it on here because it needs premium kit. But actually, I just think a key would be better in this case. I've got nothing against keyless ignition per se. I just don't think it adds much to the overall bike, so I'd do away with that as well. Truck's coming back now. Okay, next up, pillion perch, and it really is a perch. You've got to be a pretty brave pillion to go on this seat, haven't you? If you are going to take a pillion on the Rocket, then I would suggest not going with the R, but go with the GT version, which has the little backrest, which would give your pillion a little bit of a sense of security. I couldn't convince my missus to go on the back of this. She just feels like she's going to fall off. I've sat on the back myself, and it does feel very much like a perch. It's not very comfortable. Clearly, this isn't really a bike for a pillion, or certainly not for long periods of time. They have done a good job with the pillion foot pegs that are folded up nicely, but the actual seat itself isn't for long-term riding. Just maybe a quick lift to the cafe, but that's about it. Okay, next up, and this is a common issue with bikes that have this sort of mudguard arrangement on here and these massive tyres. The bike, in the rain, which I've ridden this quite a lot, in the rain and dirt, this just throws up an awful lot of mess over itself. I've got a photograph here of what it does when you ride the bike in inclement weather. It just chucks it all over the swing arm, all over the shaft drive, and yeah, it just looks a bit of a mess if you go out in the rain. Again, I appreciate this sort of bike. Oh, the truck's going at last. This sort of bike probably is going to be a fair weather rider, and you're not going to use it in bad weather, in which case that doesn't become a factor. But anyway, be aware, it does throw a lot of dirt over itself, so you've got to be keen on cleaning bikes, as I am, and I have cleaned this one, if you're going to get one. Next up, joystick controller fiddly. This is a complaint I've made about several Triumphs that I've ridden before. In particular, the big scramblers have a similar joystick controller here on the left-hand side of the handlebars. I just find that fiddly, and I find it gets in the way of the indicator when you're riding. I'm finding when I want to actually turn a corner, I have to look at my hands to check that I'm getting the indicator and not the joystick, and I get those muddled up quite a lot. Now, it might be, if you're only riding one of these bikes, over a period of time, it gets in your muscle memory, and you always hit the indicator and you always get the joystick when you want to. But I just find that whole thing a little bit fiddly, which is disappointing. Next up, if any bike needed a tail tidy, it's this one. Not quite sure if something would be available, because of course you've got the indicators out there on that outboard mudguard thing. But there's something about that back end down there I don't quite like. Personal thing. The other thing, heavy to move around on the driveway, just lugging it out of the garage. This thing, 300 plus kilograms. It is, even though the weight is nice and low, it does take a hell of a lot of heft to move the thing around on your driveway and in your garage, and that becomes tiresome after a while, I have to say. And then last but not least, I mentioned earlier the little bit of tarnishing that I think is appearing on the Monza style fuel cap. Well, there's also a little bit of tarnishing I've noticed down on the exhaust pipes already. Now clearly this isn't an old bike. I mean, it is the press bike and it has probably been treated quite badly, I'm guessing. But there is a little bit of tarnishing on the exhaust headers here, and I just wonder over time how these premium finishes on here, how they're going to hold out. Alrighty, those are the negative things I've found out about the bike. Hopefully nothing too major. Let's move on to the more pleasant, positive items. All right, well, no one likes a whinger, do they? So let's cover off the positive points about the bike. And there are loads of these, and again, these are in no particular order, but these are the things that have struck me as I've ridden the bike that are just great things about this machine, and there are plenty of them. Okay, first one, and maybe one of the biggest ones, is the looks of the bike. For me, I think this is just a beautiful looking machine, the best machine I think that Triumph have yet made. They've done a beautiful job with forming these exhausts, which they've done using a clever technique, which I can't remember the name of. I love the look of the tank. Well, I just think the whole thing hangs together well. It's like the AC Cobra of the motorbike world, or if Hot Wheels made a motorcycle, this would be the bike that they made. I understand that, you know, everybody's got different tastes. It's very much a subjective thing, but I think this is a beautiful, beautiful looking bike, and that's one of the big things that I love about the machine and why I was really keen to have a ride on it. Okay, next thing I've mentioned, I already mentioned the exhaust, the fact that I'm a bit worried about the tarnishing and it didn't sound that good, but my goodness me, it does look beautiful, doesn't it? It does make some good pops and bangers, as I said. Can't really hear them too much with earplugs in, but it is a thing of beauty. It's like a piece of art. I mentioned on a previous video, actually, I don't know if you saw the top 5 things I love about the bike, but I'll put a link in the corner here somewhere. But I would have that as a piece of mantelpiece art. I think it's just absolutely beautiful, so well done Triumph on that. Next up, the engine shove on this 2.5 litre engine, loads of torque, the most torquey motorcycle engine you can buy, in fact. Of course, it's going to go like stinking, it absolutely does. If ever a bike was given the right name, this is it. It goes like a rocket, it really does. That engine, absolutely loads of shove. I really, really love that. Next up, although I've complained a bit about maybe the longevity of the fit and finish, you can't argue with the quality feel of the bike. The fit and finish on this is lovely. Little things like the raised Triumph logo on the tank there, the little embellishers on the wheels, the back wheel itself I think looks beautiful. We already mentioned the exhaust, of course. Just everywhere you look on the bike, there are little quality finishes that kind of just make the bike ooze that sort of special thing, that je ne sais quoi that you can't put your finger on. I really love that. Talking about the quality of the fit and finish, the handlebars, again, I've mentioned this before, but the way that they've hidden most of the wiring within the handlebars, they're big, thick handlebars on here, so it's relatively easy to do, but it makes the whole top of the bike look really neat. I think if they did away with that TFT and put a couple of dials on there, that would be a beautiful place to be sitting looking at. Okay, next up, shaft drive. what a great idea. Minimal maintenance, no need for, I mean, it adds to the overall weight of the bike, of course, which is already pretty massive, but means no chain maintenance. And I think a shaft drive on a bike like this is absolutely brilliant. Also, it makes it a single-sided swing arm. Again, it just adds to the overall look of it. So thumbs up for the shaft drive. One of the electronic features on this that I really like is the hill hold control. Now, I've experienced these before on other bikes, notably things like the BMW GS 1250. On that bike, to defeat the hill hold, this is when you're on a heavy bike, you pull the brake on and it locks the brakes on so it don't roll backwards. A great idea on a bike this heavy. But on, for example, the GS, you have to give it quite a lot of throttle to overcome that, and you can end up having quite a jerky pull away. However, on this machine, I found the hill hold works absolutely beautiful. It engages at the right time, you pull the brake in, little H comes up on the dash, you're in hill hold mode, and then pulling away as smooth as you like. So that works really well on here. The mid-set pegs, it's a cruiser bike. Lots of cruiser bikes have feet forward pegs, and the GT version of this, which is the more sort of touring version, if you like, does have more foot forward pegs, which I assume mount just here. But I really like these mid-set pegs. It makes the bike feel a little bit sporty. It makes it a bit less cruiser-ish, and it makes for a comfortable riding position. So big thumbs up from me for the mid-set pegs. This makes it a bike that you can ride every day and not really suffer terrible back jarring as you go over bumps because your feet are way out in front of you, which I've experienced on some other bikes. Next up, and it's allied to the foot peg position, it is a comfortable riding position, particularly for a cruiser. Now, I know to the uninitiated, if you've not ridden different types of bikes, that cruiser position might look comfortable, but I found that isn't the case with my old aching bones. If you're sitting dead upright with your feet forward, every bump you go over is transmitted right through your spine into pretty much a bone-jarring ride. It does have lovely suspension, but you don't want that on a cruiser. The mid-set pegs, the way you're slightly leant forward, and the wide handlebars makes it feel a little bit more, well, sporty-ish, I guess, and I find that a very comfortable position to be in, so thumbs up for the comfortable position of it. And then last but not least on my list of positive things I've noticed here, the bike is just cool AF, isn't it? I mean, look at it. You ride it, you have a big grin on your face. Wherever you go, people stop and talk to you about the bike. It's just a cool-looking machine, isn't it? Okay, so there we have it. Those are the main lessons I've learnt about the Triumph Rocket 3 over the last week when I've been riding this. An absolutely beautiful bike. I really, really love it. So huge thanks to Triumph UK for letting me borrow the bike. It's in great demand, this press machine, so I'm very lucky to have had it. So thank you to those guys for making that happen. I've really enjoyed having it. I guess the big question with it is, would I have a Rocket 3? Would I spend my own hard-earned cash on it? And I've scratched my head on this one quite a bit because I do like the bike. It's a very, very nice machine, and I would love to have one. Would I want to spend my money on one? That is a different question because it is quite an expensive, well, it's a very expensive bike. Just shy of 20 grand for this, the R version. A lot of money for a bike of this type. I don't think I could live with it if it was the only bike I had because it's just too much of a one-trick pony. It is a pose machine. It's for short distances only. This is in my opinion. It's heavy to move around. Those sort of things would get on my nerves a bit. I think if I was a very well-heeled person with 20 grand spare and I had lots of other bikes that I could ride on other days and I just wanted a cruiser, then yeah, I would go for one. But it's a lot of money, 20 grand, isn't it, for something that may end up being a bit of a garage queen. Having said that, I do have a garage queen myself. My Ducati Panigale is a bit of a garage queen, but I just love the fact that I own the bike and that if I want to, I can go and ride it. And this might have that same appeal. I think owning one would be a beautiful experience, you know, looking after it, fettling it, and then on those occasional sunny days riding it. But that's the sort of niche I think this bike fits into. If you're after an everyday bike, then certainly this isn't for you. Alrighty, that's it for now on the Rocket 3. Hope you've enjoyed that. If this is the first video of mine you've seen, thank you very much indeed for watching. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer, but I do all sorts of stuff. I do bike news every month. I do trips and tours at home and abroad. I do bits and pieces about looking after your bike. Basically, all types of bikes. I love all bikes. I do anything and everything to do with motorcycles. So if you haven't done so already, it'd be fantastic. Hit that subscribe button. That way I can see you in the next video. All right, that's it for now. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.